so I don't want to get too deep into it. But I mean, I used to run like an addict. And it was an addiction replacement, but I think I run really healthily now. And I think that you can have a healthy relationships with a lot of things. And I think I have a healthy relationship with running. I recover, I fuel, I'm not punishing myself on the roads or the trails or whatever it may be out of just needing to be in this discomfort. Because I think you seek discomfort often. And I want to be a better runner. And doing that, I have actually become better at running, or at least have hit the goals that I have set for myself.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Finding Good podcast. Here we dive deep into conversations with remarkable people who have found success in life despite all of life's myriad challenges and found good on the other side. Based on 3 tenets defined in my best-selling memoir, Finding Good, these individuals have been positively selfish, surrounded themselves with good people, and more than anything, done their part to make this world a better place. My name is Mike Thompson, and this is Finding Good. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Finding Good podcast. If you know me, you know I am obsessed with food. Many years of my life, my jaw was either wired shut or I completely lost the ability to taste after my bone marrow transplant, which is why my guest today is one that I am so excited to have on, not only for his culinary expertise and creativity, but also his recent rise to fame in the running community. He is the founder and owner of Comedor in Austin, Texas, and recently made the Michelin guide. And it's my honor to introduce you to my friend, Philip Speer. Welcome to the Finding Good podcast.
Thank you so much. Grateful and excited to be here.
It's been a long time since we've known each other, 2010. I don't even know if you remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uchiko opens up, and this was about a year removed from my trip to rehab. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to remind listeners of my trajectory in life really quick because it ties into yours, I think. I went to rehab after being addicted to pain meds for 7 years. And within that was alcohol and financial trouble and legal trouble. But when I emerged from rehab and I knew and I found and discovered that life was possible without having to wake up and take a pill or without having to go out at night and get drunk, that food really surfaced as my big passion. I mean, obviously we need food to survive, but it wasn't until I went to Uchiko and had the most exquisite meal of my life, which was cherry on topped by your creations of the fried milk or tobacco cream. It was just an unbelievable culinary experience. And I want to talk about your journey in culinary, but also your recent rise to fame in the running community and walk through all that. But first and foremost, give our listeners a little background. Tell us who Philip Speer is, where he came from, and what you're up to now.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. I get uncomfortable with the word fame. It's really just such a small community. Yeah. My name's, as you said, Philip Speer. I am a Texan. I'm born in South Texas. I was born in Michelin. I grew up in South Texas till I was about 12 years old. Had a short stint here in Austin. And then spent a little bit of time in Lexington, Kentucky when my dad went to the University of Kentucky for grad school. He went to Pan Am in the Valley in Edinburgh, pre-grad. And then we came back to Texas, went to Houston where he was working on his PhD. And then I moved to Austin in 1993. So I've been in Austin since 1993. I was 16 when I moved here. And I'm 47 now. So I really consider myself a local here. And you know, I like to consider myself as really part of like the fabric of what Austin is, even though I wasn't born and raised here.
I would agree that you're an Austinite.
I've spent most of my life here. As a born and
raised Austinite, I can tell you that Philip is an Austinite.
But I'm proud of that. I think it's a great city, and I think it's a great community here in Austin. And I've always wanted to just remain present here. I have 2 daughters that I've raised here. One is a full-fledged adult at 25, and then I have a 16-year-old daughter.
It's just crazy to me that you have a 25-year-old. Like, you're not old enough to have a 25-year-old.
But I am. I love this city, and I love that I've owned multiple businesses in this city. I currently have, as you said, Comedor, and I'm really proud to have a nice, successful really great offering restaurant here in Austin. I think has really made itself over the last 5 years a part of this scene as well.
You moved back to Austin when you were 16.
16.
You jumped into the culinary world at 17.
Yeah, pretty much right away.
Your whole life in Austin has been as a chef or a cook.
Yeah, a cook, chef, baker, pastry chef. Mostly, my culinary background is the majority of my career has been spent as a pastry chef. I got into the field to be a pastry chef.
Okay.
The majority of the notoriety and recognition I got as a chef over the years, especially the first 20 years of my career, were that of a pastry chef. And I still identify as a pastry chef. But yes, chef, cook, baker, all the things, worked at all the bakeries and restaurants, Texas French Bread, Swedish Hill, Quack's 43rd Street Bakery, back then. They still exist, but those are the bakeries that I had been a part of. And then started working in restaurants and took those baking skills into dessert making in restaurants and kind of evolved into that.
Your dad, grad school, PhD, went down the academic route.
Yes.
Why culinary for you? What drew you to be a chef?
It's a great question. It's multifaceted. There's different parts. I have always had a real affinity for cooking, baking, for food. It's something that's excited me. I grew up. My dad and I grew up together. Really, just the two of us. My grandparents were nearby. And they really love food as well. And food was the main celebration we had in our families, and we didn't have really any money. So we made a lot do out of what little we had, and that needed some creativity. So I found the creativity in cooking through necessity and just not having a lot. And I learned that from my dad. My dad found the creativity in cooking through necessity. And then that was exciting and inspiring. My mom, she had moved to a different part of the country when I was really young. And so it was
split up.
Yeah. When I was really young, she had moved to Chicago. And it was just us growing up, and we had fun in the kitchen. I watched my dad have fun in the kitchen. I watched my grandmother have fun in the kitchen. My grandfather was not a cook, and
he still had fun though.
Yeah, we still had fun. And when everyone in my family is academic. There are multiple PhDs and master's degrees in my family. All of them are educators. On my mom and dad's side, actually. And I took a less traditional path. If you put together the math and realize I moved here when I was 16 by myself, you probably realize I didn't finish high school, or might assume that, and that is a correct assumption. I got my GED and started working. I thought maybe there's a small part of me that thought I could potentially make a career out of skateboarding as a teenager.
Pro skateboarder, Tony
maybe
Hawk
not a
style.
pro skateboarder, but like a career in skateboarding in the business.
Yeah.
And an avid and skilled skateboarder, but not. I didn't have illusions of being a professional, but I thought that I could. And so I worked in skate shops and restaurants. I loved food. At a certain point, pretty quickly, I realized that I had a real knack to cook, and through the way I grew up and through kind of the excitement and passion I had for it. There's another side of the story where in Chicago, because I would visit my mother, a good friend of mine, her father was the executive pastry chef for the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago.
Impressive.
And, it was amazing. And we would skate and go to her house. She had like this little skate park right by her house, and we'd all go to her house, and it was just like bonbons and pettifors on the table after we'd been sweating and skateboarding all day. And
perfect treat for
and I think it was like that. I don't know if I made that memory up. I know there was some part of it like that. Anyways,
there's got to be some truth to it.
Yeah, for sure. It was a beautiful family. They were amazing. We did have bonbons and pettifors. And I always just was really attracted to that idea to have, again, like he had two beautiful daughters who were just the friendliest, nicest people. And it's like, I want to be a pastry chef in Chicago and have this amazing, beautiful family. And so there's this like that influence as well, that I always looked up to this family. And then when I was started working in restaurants or in the hospitality business, I immediately went and worked at a restaurant as a cook. And I went straight into bakeries right after that. And I did that for a short stint, right into the bakeries after that, and did that for 5 years. Knowing that I wanted to be a pastry chef, knowing that if I had a really solid foundation of baking, that when I went into a restaurant, I would be better at utilizing all of the tricks that I had learned in the
baking
restaurant.
is so, and this is what I've learned, and I'm literally speaking to the Pope in this point if I'm speaking to the choir. But baking is all about measurements and specific ingredients to make specific things, whereas general, culinary exploration can be anything. You can
Right.
put whatever ingredients and taste. So I love that you had that foundation and desire, but also you said that your whole family were educators and academics, and fitting in with the finding good mentality of being positively selfish, you decided to be selfish and go a different route, which I absolutely love. Fast forward to today, and we're going to get into the sobriety and running and everything that you are now kind of a figurehead for. But what do you do now to be positively selfish? What are the non-negotiables for Chef Philip Speer to be Chef Philip Speer?
I have creatively worked a lot of non-negotiables into my professional life.
Sure.
Hence the run club at the restaurant.
Yep.
Right. That's the little secret there is that I basically worked running 3 days a week into my work schedule.
It's so perfect. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Comedor Run Club is 3 days a week, right?
It's the 10 a.m. time is 3 days a week. We also have a Thursday night time.
It's strategically designed to allow service industry individuals who work late hours to be able to sleep in a little bit, get up, go run, and take care of themselves both physically and mentally without infringing upon their normal schedule. Brilliant idea.
Yeah. And it's been super successful.
And it's open to you. You say you're open to anyone, but it was designed originally for service industry folks.
Yeah, I mean the idea is to gear it towards hospitality professionals. The idea of the time frame is with that in mind. We have all sorts of people in the running community who come join us for runs, which I love. We have some very core members of our run club who don't work in restaurants. But when you look at the really active core members of who we are, I'd say 80% of us do work in restaurants or have, and then have kind of transitioned out of restaurants, which happened kind of pandemic time. A lot of people transitioned out of the service business and the hospitality business and changed. But so the non-negotiable is another trick I did is Comedor is the Austin, was the Texas, now there's a Houston, but was the Austin headquarters for Ben's Friends, which is a 501c3 based in Charleston. That is now in 22 cities across the country, including Austin. And it is a coalition of sober food and beverage professionals. So every Monday morning at 11 a.m. after our 10 a.m. run, on Mondays only, we meet and do just sort of a meeting. It's a network. It's not a program of recovery.
You meet in person or virtually?
We meet both, but always in person. We have 12 to 20 people in the restaurant meeting in person at our tables while we're not open. We have our computer screen up. We have another 6 to 8 people who join us online. And there are online meetings accessible throughout the week. There's 24 meetings. There's a national meeting. There's local meetings that are accessible by Zoom, as well as like a men's, a women's, a friends of, et cetera. But I am on the board of the nonprofit as well and the Austin chair. And so that has also worked into my work life. Yeah. So that right there, I mean, that's 4 almost hours out of the week that I've incorporated into my day just being at my restaurant. And that was something that I don't even know if I realized I was doing it at the time, but it might have been the smartest thing I ever did, because I know that 3 days a week built into me being at work, being a professional, being a chef, being a restaurateur, restaurant owner, and all the things that entails, I'm also getting my self-care. Other non-negotiables, I have to go to the gym.
Every day?
No, but as often as possible. Yeah. I do have a gym schedule that I keep, and I don't let much get in the way of that. There are times that's kind of the lower, like when I start pulling things away because I know I'm going to have a busy week or need to put my head down or there's a holiday coming up or Michelin is around the corner. I may have to change my work schedule a bit, and then the gym time gets affected first.
Of course.
But I can reschedule that, and that's why some of that happens that way. Running is non-negotiable. Sobriety is non-negotiable. Those things are Philip first, and they are selfish. but they're positively selfish in a way that I know if it's not Philip first, I'm not available to anyone else. If I'm not good, no one can be good who needs good from me, right?
That's
not
brilliant.
Everyone needs to be good from me, but my wife, my kids, my business partners, my team, my staff. If I'm not my best or close to or trying to be my best, no one else can get what they should get from me with me in that role. Does that make sense?
It makes more sense than I can even explain.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Let's go back to pre-sober Philip.
Uh-huh.
I know just from working in the service industry, I was a host at Joe's Crab Shack for, this is at the height
of Riverside?
No, the one, it used to be off of Duval up north.
Uh-huh.
And I worked there. My best friend Morgan from high school was a hostess there. They didn't have any server roles available. So I just became a host with the goal of eventually becoming a server. I remember they had Concept, which was you dance to Car Wash in the middle of the restaurant while music's playing. And it was the most embarrassing, cringe thing now for all you Gen X young people. Just YouTube Joe's Crab Shack dancing and you'll see what it was. But during Concept one time, I was asked to food run and I remember carrying a plate of like 4 plates. And the only way I could get through this tight, narrow walkway was to lift it up over my head, and 1 plate of Dungeness crab slid that way. I overcorrected. Everything fell on this table, and I quit the next day. I was like, this is not for me. Knowing what I knew back then, though, the common theme was after we closed at 11, shut down, clean up the restaurant by 12:30, everyone would go to someone's house to drink.
Yep.
And we know through, popular culture that like, hey, let's go grab a beer. Hey, let's go grab a glass of wine, whatever it may be. But for people that do that repetitively, it can become a vicious cycle of catching up with the hangover. And, I feel like shit today. I can't wait till 5 o'clock when I can just nurse that hangover a little bit. For service industry folks, I can't even imagine every single night just not being forced into it, but it's what you do. Big fan of Anthony Bourdain. And I remember, watching No Reservations or reading his books and him talking about that. Was that kind of how you fell into your worst moments of addiction and alcoholism?
Yes and no. It starts earlier in here.
Internal Philip.
Yeah. Like some of the philosophies I believe in alcoholism have more to do with what is going on, whether that's the trauma that you have or are experiencing, and how that plays. And this is a term you'll hear sometimes, or quote, drinking is but a symptom. And when there's more to that, right? Culturally, it is accepted.
Promoted, celebrated.
Well, I was going to say in some cultures, in the restaurant culture, it was not only accepted, it was absolutely expected. And I came up in that Bourdain era, and I was kind of, it's like the perfect storm, perfect age, living in Austin, no real responsibilities, working hard, doing well,
making money.
It was the ego mentality was accepted in the kitchen at that time. It was very masculine presence. It was very, I worked downtown. I got off work at 11 o'clock, midnight. There's not a lot to do, right? That's the story you tell yourself. There's nothing else to do.
Right.
This is how I have friends. This is my happy hour. This is how I connect. This is how I network to be better and have more opportunities in my career, right? And the list goes on and on and on, and why it's okay to do that.
You're constantly justifying why you're needing to get drunk every night.
And then what do? You're hungry. So what do? You eat shitty fast food.
Whataburger,
always Whataburger. Yeah. Sometimes Jack in the Box, but usually Whataburger. Go to Whataburger on Riverside, line out the door. I mean, it was different back then. We worked downtown, so all the bars were downtown. We'd go to a bar after work. And then there was this perpetual cycle of like, I feel like shit, but I'm working hard, I'm playing hard. And it was justifiable. But the justification, when I look at that now, that was just a story I told myself, because that activity, that behavior was a symptom of something else. And it was something else where I wasn't fulfilled somewhere else. And that is what I needed, or I thought I needed to make that to be fulfilled. Now that's not to say I didn't make some friends and I didn't find some career opportunities at a bar, but I didn't need to. And the story and what I really wanted to do with Comedor Run Club, and with all of the restaurants that I have opened and owned since post sobriety or in sobriety, is say, hey, there is another way to connect. It doesn't have to be at 11, 12 p.m. Or if it is, go for half an hour.
Right.
Go do that thing.
Yep.
I'm not someone who's being like, I'm not like, don't do this, but do that or don't. And then come run with us at 10,
right.
Or come check out this meeting, or, we have a cookbook club, come cook, or come do any of these things that you can do to build community, to, embrace and build the camaraderie with your team and with other people in other restaurants or bars or whatever it may be. You can do all of that still. You don't have to do it at midnight. You don't have to do it at La Vaca. All right. You can do it wherever you want.
Perfect segue into that second tenet of surrounding yourself with good people. You talk about camaraderie with your team.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was promoted a lot and that I learned in rehab is when you get out, you need to change your people, places, and playthings. Mm-hmm. I think in AA and recovery culture, we love acronyms and we love figures of speech. Did you have to take inventory of the people that you were hanging around with? And, and not suggesting that they were malicious folks, but who do you surround yourself with now to make sure that you're staying on task, not only as a chef, as a husband and a father, but just as a human being? And are there, second part of that question is, are there some people that you just had to distance yourself from?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny immediately once you start changing your habits and the way you do things, people will just kind of fall off. It doesn't even have to be a conscious decision. Right. If there's
might not be malicious either. It's just the nature of things.
Isn't.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. It's birds of a feather. I mean, if I'm going out and doing the same thing all of the time, I'm going to be around the people who are doing that as well. And I mean, something about alcohol makes you immediately really good friends.
More social.
Right. So
I love you, man.
Yeah, exactly. So you see some of the superficial or some of the shallowness of those relationships right away. And then they no longer are a priority because the activity or the behavior associated with that relationship is no longer a priority. The priorities have shifted. And once those priorities shift, a lot of that pairs away. It just melts away. Naturally. Now, there are some other, and I've had to distance myself from some people in my life who were very good friends of mine, lifelong, decades-long friends that unfortunately through some time of trying and prioritizing those relationships, still not being able to connect and kind of that
more profound level
falling apart. Yeah. And there are a couple people who are really close to me in my life who I've had to do that with, and that's unfortunate. But it was what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And that's through taking that's a harder, clearly a much harder one. And that's something that you don't want to, you want that to be the last resort when these people mean so much to you. But when you keep showing up in a relationship over and over again and you don't feel good, you really have to examine that relationship.
I remember, I do research for every one of my guests, but whenever it's a friend that I've known, there's some things that I don't know about you or didn't know about you. But I do remember seeing a photo of you, and like me, if I see a photo of myself from 2007, 8, granted I'm a lot younger, I look better now than I did back then. And I remember seeing a photo of you when you were pretty heavy, and you didn't look like you were very happy in life. And to me now, when I see you, you just look like this vibrant, incredible individual. And I've benefited, a lot of people have benefited from who you are now as a husband, father, chef, community member. And so I just wanted to congratulate and applaud you on that journey, because it is nothing short of remarkable. And it's inspired me to continue to find those ways to live my best self. And you said it perfectly, like if Philip isn't good, then no one else around Philip that's expecting things from Philip can be good. If you don't talk about your journey, then doesn't have to be chefs or service industry, hospitality folks, but if you don't talk about your journey, then others don't know that it's possible. And for me, when I was at the height of my addiction, or I guess I should say depth, the lowest of the low, the reason why I couldn't let go of it was because I couldn't envision a life not waking up and taking pills. And like I said before, not going out at night and drinking, taking 2 shots just to like get the buzz going. And that would make me more social and therefore add value to my life. You are embodying the third tenet of finding good, leave the world better than you found it, by sharing that story. What inside of you now that you say you've kind of overcome that trauma, you're no longer, the symptom of drinking is no longer a symptom. And it seems like you're in a place of peace that you can now go out and better the world. But why? You're a Michelin guide chef now. You're connected to some of the best known members of the culinary world. And really the business community in Austin knows who you are. And yet you started Comedor Run Club. You constantly talk about your sobriety. You're involved with things like Field Guide, the Field Guide Fest. For our friends Lindsay and obviously Trisha created Field Guide Fest. For those of you who don't know, it's a way to bring chefs and farmers together to build sustainable relationships. But one thing that you said was in our pre-interview that relationships are currency.
Yeah,
and that's how you find value. And so just talk a little bit about what drives you to leave the world better than you found it, because I think you do it better than most.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. You did say one thing that I want to, that's just stuck out. And you said, you've overcome that trauma to become this more peaceful person, essentially, is what you said. Paraphrased. It is a constant work on the trauma.
Yep. And
I think that a lot of times human beings, I don't want to say forget, but maybe don't realize that when you unravel one thing, there's often more and more and more to unravel. And if you're not constantly reflecting, self-inventorying, looking at yourself, and finding ways to reconcile some of the things that have happened to you throughout your life, you're going to hit those blocks again. That might not mean a relapse. That might not mean, but still, you can never really find that peace until, it might just manifest in road rage, right? Like, who knows, but you will never really find that peace. And by no means am I enlightened and have I found all the peace, but I do live more peacefully every day, I believe.
Instead of drinking, it's running. Those are your symptoms now to combat that trauma.
Well, even that's interesting. I said this on another podcast, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I mean, I used to run like an addict. And it was an addiction replacement, but I think I run really healthily now. And I think that you can have a healthy relationship with a lot of things. And I think I have a healthy relationship with running. I recover, I fuel, I'm not punishing myself on the roads or the trails or whatever it may be out of just needing to be in this discomfort, because I think you seek discomfort often. And I want to be a better runner. And doing that, I have actually become better at running, or at least have hit the goals that I have set for myself.
Right.
So in my opinion, better at running. And that means something different to everyone else. So I do it the way that I would like to do it. And that's evolved. And I think that I engage with it in a really healthy way. I hope so. But I feel like, to really embrace the philosophy of living in a sober way, you have to bring other people in, and you have to bring other people in by attracting them, by showing them exactly what you said, that it's possible. You can do it. You can live this life and be happy. You can wake up and not do the thing you think you have to do. And there will be discomforts in that. And there will be discomforts in the reality of no longer choosing to numb that reality, whatever it may be. There may be discomforts in a physical discomfort in changing the way you do that. But ultimately, it will lead to a place that it's more peaceful. And you said something about how I was physically. I mean, I was 285 pounds.
That's
I smoked
incredible.
a pack and a half cigarettes a day. I ate every meal outside of going out to eat at restaurants, which I obviously love to do. Every meal I ate was fast food. I did not take care of myself physically. I put poison in my body. I consumed poison, whatever that was, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I decided to stop doing that. And I decided to stop doing that all on the same day. Now, that would be misleading if I didn't say my hand was forced to some degree. I had some major legal issues and had burnt a lot of bridges and ruined a lot of those relationships that were so important to me.
That's something that we both share as well is DWIs.
Yeah, a lot of them.
How many DWIs
4.
have you had? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember being in rehab on the 4th one, and even the MD on the rehab staff was like, I wasn't admitting I was an alcoholic yet. He's like, hey man, like, wake the fuck up. Like, you have 4 DWIs. There's something that your brain, body, soul, whatever you want to say, is telling you that it's okay to keep doing this.
You're not comprehending that this is bad.
That is an issue, right?
You weren't a bad person, but you were making very bad choices.
Yeah, I was doing something. So that reality that I was just basically slowly to some degree, but also quickly killing myself at that overweight and taking type 2 diabetes, hardcore sleep apnea. I had other issues going on, and I just, I had 2 daughters, and I remember someone saying like, look, if your children choose to have children, you're not going to know them, right? You're not going to be able to. That's powerful. Yeah. And it was powerful. So I want to show this is hard. This is hard for me because I did live a lot of my life kind of in this like really showboat place. I was a skater. I was like rowdy, tattoos all over me. Look at me. We're doing this, kind of a show off. Got in the culinary business, did really well in it, doing some innovation, people noticing it, getting national recognition for it, going to events, doing this kind of like real kind of like showboat shit, right? And having a good time doing it and doing the work well, but it was all a facade, right? It was all a mask, and it was masking a lot of great insecurity within me that was caused by a lot of trauma growing up.
Sure.
And now doing podcasts, receiving praise from peers and people I look up to, saying that you have some notoriety or fame in the running world or the kitchen, the restaurant world. Like, that's hard for me because it is so the opposite of what I want to be. I don't want to be that person anymore. And I'm not that person anymore. And I want to show people that you can do it. So I live in this weird juxtaposition of like, kind of being in your face of like, look, I'm sober. You can be sober too, and be a successful restaurateur and father, husband, and athlete, runner, whatever it is you want to do. And I still want to be like, but we're chill, we're reserved, like, but I don't have a whole lot of chill, so I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's
100% I do.
But I want to show, and I need to. And one, again, in the philosophies of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, like that, you do lead by example, and you do attract people in, and that is part of what I want to be. And that is one service I can be to my community, is say, you can do it. And I looked up to people who were doing it. So that's how I learned that. James Robert is one of them. We spoke of him.
Yep.
When he had years of sobriety as a chef, and someone that I looked up to as not only a successful chef, but a cool dude, and someone who could live his life not drinking and still have a pretty great life. And there were multiple people like that in my life that I looked up to and saw that it was reflective in a way where I saw what I was doing in a reflection of them. I didn't like what I was doing, but I liked what they were doing. So can I have what they have? And that's why these programs exist. That's why these meetings exist. That's why the Run Club exists. That's why I happily go on podcasts with friends so we can talk about
What I love about that is once I got out of rehab, I didn't go to a single meeting. It wasn't that I felt that I was above them. I felt that once I broke free of the clutches of addiction and Vicodin, I didn't need it just to feel normal anymore. That I didn't want to be confined. Like, I can only do this if I go to a meeting. Right. I can only stay sober and keep living a good life if I get a sponsor and I have that kind of like cloud around me. And again, what I love is that you showcase that it's possible to channel your energy into doing something that adds to your not just your lifespan, but your health span. Mm-hmm. Our lifespan is the years that we're alive, from year 0 until 78 or 85 or 99 or whatever we're blessed to live. Right. Your health span is how long you can live without somebody else taking care of you. Mm-hmm. And I think for you and me both, I'll speak for both of us, that the way that we were living was unmanageable and it was unsustainable. And eventually your daughters, they're going to have to take care of you living in a facility or dealing with dementia if you kind of went down that route. And so it seems to me that you've added health span to your life, not just lifespan. And it's just so impressive, Philip. And I know, like you, I never want to be known as an influencer because the influencer definition to me now is just this constant, like, you know, look at what I'm doing. And to me, it is the most arrogant, selfish way. I don't want to discount the hard work it takes to be an influencer because I know that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, especially if you're good at editing and all that. But there are some times that I'm like, there are people suffering from cancer, suffering from addiction, suffering from a loved one being unable to care for themselves. And you're just sitting here like, I'm on a beach and I'm making money because you're all looking at my content. And it's just this balance of cringy. Like you, yes, look at me, but not for very long. Or like, look at me to see what life can be like for you, but I don't want your attention. I want you to go live the life that you want.
Yeah.
I don't want to be an influencer. I want to influence.
Come do it with me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, let's join together and live life and add health span to our lives. Let's build community.
Like, let's bring other people in and let's show them together that we can do that. And that's the real, you know, you say founder of Comedor Run Club, but co-founder of I mean, Comedor Run Club doesn't exist with one person, right? We did it. Yeah. A bunch of us did it. And a bunch of us brought other people in. And then I brought some people in. And then you brought some people in. You brought some people in. And then they did. And that's how things go. That's how community is built. And that's why those relationships, that when I say relationships currency, I mean, I truly mean that. Like, when I said earlier, like, I really do believe that I'm part of the fabric of what Austin is, at least culturally today. And even though I haven't been here for the entire 47 years of my life, I've been here for over 30 of them. And the work that I've done here is cultural work. And it's not just in restaurants, it's in many other ways, which I don't think the podcast is long enough to go through them, but I'm proud of that. And so I nurture and sustain those relationships so that we have a community that spans all through the city and surrounding areas, because it's important that those relationships, whether it's a relationship with a chef and a farmer to a restaurant or through other runners and run clubs or sobriety and sobriety groups and groups of people who are looking to do things differently, whatever it may be, like maintaining those and having real, genuine, authentic relationships is really the lifeline of all of that.
Such an impressive soliloquy there. That's going to be a great quote. We'll put that out there for sure. All right, let's talk about some fun stuff before we wrap up. Why Mexican food?
That's a great question. I get asked that question a lot. Many people do not realize that I am Mexican. My father, John Speer, is not of Mexican descent. My mother, Diana Almanza, who passed away earlier this year, in the middle of last year, is, and she is first generation Texan. There are so many reasons. The food, the culture, the love for all of those ingredients, the love for the culture is really primarily what drives that. Also, the experience and the offering and the building that we built in this city, in this state, and this part of the country, I think is such a celebratory offering and showcase of what Mexican and Texan culture can be and is.
It's my favorite cuisine. Ask anyone. Taco Mike is my nickname in many circles.
I see lots of tacos.
Tacos for life. But I grew up with Mexican neighbors. I grew up going to Mexico to do mission work, and the food was always that celebration. Whether we were having, cabrito at the end of a long work day, building a church, whether it was going to Tio George, not Tio Jorge, Tio George and Saltillo, and had street tacos, or watching them cut the al pastor off the trompo. Like all of those things were moments in time that I'm like, I'm never gonna forget this. And when I go to Comedor, I feel that same thing. It's using food to tell a story. Yeah. And I think the rhetoric of food, we talked about this in our kind of pre-interview, is it stands alone as the one art form that we actually need to live. And I think it's going to be the industry that goes untouched by AI. There's certainly certain processes and ordering and maybe even like menu development. You can type into Chat GPT and say, "Hey, make me a Mexican menu," and I'll follow it.
For sure.
But it's never going to replace the creativity of the chef, and it's never going to replace the community that you get when you bring people together.
Yeah, you can never replace the feeling that food does create, and yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the AI restaurant on Instagram though?
I saw it's like posting pictures and stuff, and it's all fake, right? But people like, oh my god, this looks amazing! Like it's just so it's weird to me, you know. It's like it can be so real.
The people that are based in Austin. It's really
I did not know that.
Yeah.
They
were actually nominated for an award just off the Instagram account. It's epic. I mean, it's such a reflection of who and where we are in society that awards are actually being nominated to a fake Instagram account that aren't fake Instagram account awards. They're like
they're real awards being awarded to fake.
And so
it's a fascinating time we're living in.
Yeah, I
really love movies, and when popular culture and media can showcase what food and the culinary industry is really like. Movie Chef by shout out Jon Favreau. If you ever want to be on the podcast, we'd love to have you. I love that he really got into the minutia of what it takes to go and source ingredients and get local proteins and local veggies and create a dish out of them for their patrons. And then, obviously he transferred into the food truck realm. I think food is so easily accessible, but it can also be a way to kind of exclude people. You have the Michelin guide, you have all these high-end restaurants that are, for most people, especially middle class and below, would not be able to afford an experience like that.
Absolutely.
What do you do to make sure that you're providing access to people? Field Guide Fest, I think, is a great example of showcasing, what you can do with relationships, supporting local farmers, making sure that you're not encouraging exclusivity in food. It seems to me. Talk a little bit more about Field Guide and what that looks like.
I mean, I think that's a great point. And one thing that I personally do to a fault is you can find me at almost any event giving food away. Even like we've crossed over into running events now too. We're doing the Concha ice cream sandwiches and making tacos for the Satisfy run.
Man. Oh my gosh.
Over TRE but those are all a little bit more self-serving, but lots of charity events. I'm also the ambassador for Central Texas, culinary ambassador for Central Texas Food Bank.
Yep. They do great work.
Food insecurity, food scarcity is a real issue that goes often, I don't want to say ignored, but just really kind of unrealized that how many people it affects. There's some great irony in being an owner, co-owner, and chef of a very, very high-end restaurant. So there's many things I do to sort of bring some balance to that outside of even the charity work that I just mentioned. But Field Guide is a great example, and a Field Guide is a way to bring all of those chefs together, many of which now, for the first time, 2025 Field Guide are Michelin recognized. And still, and many of them have lots and lots of other awards. But coming out and doing these events where people can come in and sample all of the restaurants and highlight and celebrate the farmer and the local farm as well. And many of those local farmers and local food producers are at the farmers market. They are in small stores, whether that's small local stores, whether that's Wheatfield, whether it's like Farm's House Delivery, like we were talking about earlier. And you can get access to them in that way, and then start buying, Boggy Creek, you can go, they have a farm stand every week. Storehouse and Bastrop and their Farm Eden East. You can go and get access to these foods, and then you can meet those farmers and find that pathway to access in those foods through the Field Guide Festival. And we actually have, we give discounted tickets to people who can't have the right access that they need. What else do we do? I'm constantly giving gift cards away for charitable events to get people.
I know you do that.
People in the
doors. I'm going to be hitting you up again. Got a lot of events coming up this year. So.
Yeah, and we're happy to do that. And that's that's not only a way to get people in the door who may not have already come in the door, but it's a way to gain a new guest, a new person to come, hopefully repeatedly. We participate in the Austrian Restaurant Weeks, and doing that, where we have lowered our price points. We've lowered the barrier of entry for people to come and experience our restaurant, experience the food, and all of that goes back to charity as well. So a lot of things, and constantly trying to reimagine ways we can do things to support not only inequalities in food access, but the ability for people to experience it in our restaurant too.
Austin has become what I feel is like the new New York or Chicago, where we just have this endless list of restaurants to go to, new cuisine to try. I love seeing, with Kanje come out and, just explore different types of cuisine.
Yeah.
Hestia,
very.
Este, just there's countless ones.
Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant besides Comedor?
You've named a couple of the restaurants that I really like in a specific restaurant group by Tavel, who has Kanje, and Kevin, who has
Kevin Fink
as well. I mean, those guys are partners in that restaurant group, as well as a whole slew of amazing, incredible restaurant professionals and chefs. I love those restaurants. Other favorite restaurants, I love Birdie's. I think it's such a great restaurant.
Shout out Tracy Malachek.
Yeah, Arjav and Tracy are amazing hospitality professionals, and both do what they do so well.
Yep.
And it melds into this like really, really hospitable, amazing experience. There's so many talented chefs in Austin, and a lot of times you hear the names of the chefs. You hear my name a lot. Maybe you hear those names I named earlier. You do see Tracy cooking every day, but there are some other chefs where they get the credit for the offerings, and they deserve credit for building these places. But we got to remember that there are teams of people creating these foods, and those teams of people are very talented and working very hard to get the food on your table. And many of them immigrants, and understanding that these crews and teams of people that are working tirelessly to get the best food to you, that's where the real credit goes. And I truly, truly mean that. And as much as I can, I celebrate all the chefs, cooks, and restaurant professionals around me. And it's not just in the kitchen or in the front or in the bar. I mean, every part of it has to be working well in order for the experience to be as great as it can be. So
impressive, man. All right. Before we close up, let's do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
This is a little practice that I stole from Brene Brown, just to tell people a little bit more about you. Favorite song or artist?
Favorite song or artist?
When you're putting the headphones on, what are you listening to? In the kitchen, on a run?
Oh man, I would go all time favorite artist. Probably heaviest rotation is the De La Soul first 3 albums. I would say probably heaviest rotation today, Kendrick Lamar. And then
just another more Grammys. It's packing them in, right? Kendrick.
I was real late to that boat, but there's some real talent and excitement there.
Favorite cheat meal? You talked about eating fast food for many years of your life, but what's your go-to?
My favorite cheat meal, I love, and this isn't really even particularly cheap, but it's a lower price point counter service place, P Ties. Come on, guy, his chicken is fucking incredible. Everything he does. He is definitely one of my very, very, very favorite chefs in Austin and beyond. That is a great, quick, delicious, relatively inexpensive meal. He should charge more. He won't. But yeah.
I love that.
P-Ties, come on.
Favorite TV show or movie?
I don't do a lot of TV. I'd say what's on right now for probably the 5th time is the entire season of How I Met Your Mother. I like comedies.
It's timeless.
I like comedies. I like funny stuff. Before that, it was The Office.
Yep.
I like things that I don't have to really commit a lot of energy.
You can just have on in the background while you're folding laundry or whatever.
They entertain me.
Yep.
There are some, and that's not to say there have been some series that have really I've been excited about and watched them all the way through. I did, unpopular opinion for a lot of chefs, I did thoroughly enjoy The Bear.
Okay, so that was actually going to be a question I was going to ask earlier. I'm glad that you brought it up. Is it accurate?
There are some accuracies. It is drama.
Of course, it's meant to be.
But there's some accuracies. And you know what? There's some fucking drama in restaurants.
I mean, the not only the restaurant, but the family. I mean, you can show that this is like a standalone type thing of like that family is alcohol-induced arguments every single night, and you can't even talk to people.
I mean, talk about unpacking trauma. I mean, the people often watch that. People in my business often watch that like it causes me too much stress. I don't want to watch work when I'm getting off work.
My wife said, I can't watch this. Like, it just makes me want to scream.
I got more anxiety around the family aspects of it than the actual kitchen aspects of it. There are a lot of truths to that. There are a lot of really blown out of proportion, dramatic stories in that as well. And all of it's perfectly entertaining to me.
Well, and also like just touching on the substance abuse aspect, like it's just constant chain smoking as soon as you go outside and take a break. The alcohol issue, as soon as you close down the restaurant, you're tapping into the wine. And so I think that part of it too just reminded me of like, wow, this is really what it was like, you know, even though I was at Joe's Crab Shack, it's how the service industry functions oftens. And
there's been an evolution. There has been growth. There has been some change. And I think it's really, really important to note that. And a lot of it is through visibility. Right. And
awareness.
through talking about these things and saying, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. And which is another reason I like to be in service in that way.
This is a tough one. So I apologize for putting you on the spot. Person in history that you would have liked to have met, dead or alive, who you want to have a conversation with?
Oh man. That's not really a rapid fire question.
It's more thought-provoking than anything. Mine would be Anthony Bourdain.
I mean,
he's one of them. I would want to know what was going through his mind throughout all of his travels, you know, to go from working, you know, as basically cleaning dishes to becoming arguably one of the most famous culinary personalities.
He's tough for me. He wrote the handbook on how to do this. In a not healthy way. And I appreciate his.
Well, and I hate to bring this up, but I mean, look how it ended for him. I mean, that's what happens when it goes unaddressed.
Right, that's the whole story. Right. We got the complete story. We got to see the whole story.
And that's part of why I'm fascinated with it. Like I wish, and I would kind of like Robin Williams for me. Like I just wanted to have a conversation and be like, you know, we're all going to die, but why in this capacity? So.
I do realize I still haven't given you an answer, because I mean, to be honest, it's just a really hard question. The place my mind goes first is like my mom's dad, who the last time he died when I was 10.
You never got to really know him,
and I didn't really get to know him. I really didn't get to know his history. A lot of my family history stops there. That's available to me. My grandmother, my mom's mom, now has dementia, and I also don't have really active relationships with that right now. I would love to have another. I mean, the person that I've looked up to most in my life is my dad's mother, and I would love to spend another hour, week, day, whatever with her. And then you go and you say people like Robin Williams, you look at musical artists who have been so incredible, so amazing. I'd love to sit down and talk to Tupac. Right? Like there's so many. I'd love to have a meal with Charlie Trotter, like
Kurt Cobain.
So it's, I don't know. I think
that's a great answer.
For me, first is there's so much rich family history that I no longer have access to through generations being gone and not a good account of them. My grandfather on my dad's side did an amazing job. He wrote a book. He literally wrote a book of our family tree. And so I know everything on this side, but there's just more and more I want to know on other sides.
The reason why I don't put, celebrity or politician or anything, I say person is, and my guess so far, everyone has said, a famous person in time. And there's no discounting that for my other guests. You're the first one that's said a non-celebrity. And I think that goes to show a lot about you as a person, that, you want to know where you came from, know your legacy. And I imagine part of it is to channel to your daughters, to Trisha, what you want your legacy to be.
No,
and I think you're just such an impressive human being, and I'm so thankful to have you on today. Really quick, hit us with the socials, the websites. Tell us about Ben's Friends, Field Guide Fest, Comedor, at Philip Speer, all those things.
All of it sounds like so much. Field Guide Fest, actually tickets just went on sale, so shameless plug. That's April 27th. You still have plenty of time to buy tickets for 3 days of fun festivals, 3 different events, or you can get all 3. We'll have chef dinners. We'll have symposium with educators in the food system world. A lot to learn and a lot to experience.
It's a phenomenal event. I can't praise it enough.
It truly is. And my wife, Trisha, and Lindsay Sokol, who we brought up, are the co-founders of that festival. Also, Urban American Farmer is my wife's brand. And she manages farm plots around the community. A couple of them actually provide food for our restaurant. Then, at Philip Speer on Instagram, www.chefphilipspeer on the World Wide Web. Those are really the only things I use. I wrote a journal. I meant to bring one for you. I sell those on the site. And then, Comedor Run Club is our Instagram. Comedor Run Club is the website. All are welcome. Truly, truly are. It is casually paced. It is community. It is a place to build and connect. You will also see that some of the people in our crew run 100-milers or 200-milers or run fast marathons or whatever. We don't do that at the Run Club. We don't do that Monday at 10 a.m. We do that on our own time and have sub-training groups who go do things. And the Run Club is about building community and having fun. You don't have to be a cook. You don't have to be a chef. You don't have to be a bartender or a manager or an owner. You don't have to be fast or slow or anything. It's literally just a place to build community of people who want to do something that's fun and healthy. And then Ben's Friends, the Coalition of Sober Food and Beverage Professionals, we meet in person at Comedor on Mondays at 11 a.m. And then you, at Ben's Friends Hope, you can find many Zoom and web accessible meetings there.
Impressive. So get your tickets to Field Guide ASAP. Show up to Comedor Run Club, regardless of whether you're a runner or a service industry person. Show up. It's an incredible community that continues to grow with each week. Philip, I can't thank you enough for being on the Finding Good podcast. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to more years of friendship and running.
Same.
And you're just as impressive as they come. And I'm so happy you joined me today.
You inspire me so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks,
it's an honor.
Thank you for joining the Finding Good podcast today. Please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Stay tuned for another episode coming up in 2 weeks. My name is Mike Thompson, and as always, keep finding good.